Welcome, everybody, back to the Thrive in Wabash County podcast. If it's your first time listening, welcome. And if you're a longtime listener, we're glad you tuned into this episode. My name's Alex Downer, one of the co-hosts of the Thrive in Wabash County podcast. And today in the studio, we have a coworker of mine, our Vice President for Strategic Initiatives, Julie Garber at the Community Foundation, and the Executive Director from the Learn More Center, Cynthia Johnson. Thank you, ladies, both for being here today.
Thanks for having us.
Thank you so much.
I appreciate both of you coming in. I've been really excited to highlight, I think everybody's probably heard, hopefully, a little bit about all the exciting things going on at the Learn More Center. But specifically for the listener, obviously, Cynthia is the Executive Director, has been with the Learn More Center for a long time. She can talk about where the Learn More Center's been, where it's at, and where it's headed. But also, I wanted to make sure that Julie Garber from our team was able to join us because Julie, from the ground level of the Learn More Center, was involved in that work. And so we talk a lot at the Community Foundation just about our different roles in the community and with community leadership in a variety of different areas, whether it's education, housing, et cetera. But we always use the Learn More Center as an example of an organization or an initiative that started from the Community Foundation and then over the years to watch the progress of the Learn More Center and just becoming sustainable and really taking off and running is really exciting. So I'm excited to get to that today. All right, Julie, if you wouldn't mind telling the listeners just a little bit about your history with the Learn More Center and maybe with the Community Foundation first and how the Learn More Center came to be.
Great. Yeah, I came on to the Community Foundation staff in 2012. We have maintained representation from the Community Foundation on the Learn More Center board for many years, well, really from the beginning, because it was a project of the Community Foundation. In what year, Cynthia? It was about
2002 was the official launch. Cape Grant from Lilly Foundation was the initiative of it first.
Yeah.
And
so we have maintained our relationship to that program, helping with development and programs and all kinds of things. I served on the board, and we see this as part of our work of supporting education in the county from early childhood through adults. And the Learn More Center it launches out on its own, as it has for a number of years now. It's gotten stronger and stronger as an impactful program for adult learning in the county.
Julie, when you talk about the Community Foundation's focus on educational attainment, speak into a little bit about the reasoning behind that and our belief in educational attainment and how truly it's not just our programming with early childhood or with Imagine Early, but still the importance of the adult education piece.
Right. In about 2012, 2011, the Community Foundation returned to its mission of supporting the prosperity of every citizen of Wabash County. And through a lot of study and discussion, we came to the conclusion that we could reach prosperity for every citizen through education, that education was key to getting people on to more prosperity, more ability to have a professional life or a work life that would support their families. And so the way that we could support education, apart from public education, which was doing a great job for kindergarten through 12, was to focus on early education, but also the adult learner after high school. We have had a low educational attainment rate after high school in Wabash County. Not much better than 28% of people who are between the ages of 24 and 64 have any certification or degree after high school. It's a little better if you count people who have started some kind of certification program but haven't finished it. And so the Learn More Center is our main way of pulling those people into the education pipeline. Yeah.
that's true.
No, I think that Tennille Zartman, President and CEO from Grow Wabash County, who I believe now is still the board chair, of the Learn More Center. Grow Wabash County's work with employers and continuously kind of keeping the finger on the pulse of the employer needs of today and the training needs in the future too, I think has been a critical partnership and piece of the adult education work. I know it's been almost a three-legged stool, maybe a little bit of the Community Foundation, the Learn More Center, and Grow Wabash County collaboratively over the last several years working towards to get the Learn More Center where it is today.
Definitely. We had some huge support from the city ARPA funds as well as city and the community foundations. So that allowed that expansion. We saw historically when I started in 2005, all of our students were looking for literacy skills and or to get a high school equivalency. Very few were looking at any certifications or any sort of training beyond or college. And we've seen that change. We've seen that change with state initiatives and even just among our population that they're finding, I got out there, I got my high school equivalency, I did what you said, but then I could go this far. And that idea of lifelong learning, whether that's immediately after you get your high school equivalency, or I just had 2 students return after 9 years. Their children are in school, graduating high school, so now it's their turn. And so they're both pursuing school right now at the college level. So it may not take immediate, but it's that idea of having a lifelong learning hub here in Wabash County where I can get whatever I need. And that's the beauty of what we're seeing with the new building, that people can come in and start to get more help on accessing what they need to get that next goal.
Absolutely. And I'm excited to talk a lot more about hopefully the new building here in a second. But 2 things we talk about a lot in Wabash County is collaboration, right? And as I've learned about the Learn More Center in the last few years, and now at the Community Foundation, continue to learn more, it's rooted in that collaboration piece. It's a perfect example of many things in Wabash County, but that have come from collaboration and that still continue to move on to bigger and better things because of partnership and collaboration. The other thing I think that's really neat, though, with the educational attainment focus and Learn More's role in that, it's almost a lot like how we talk about population, right? In order for our population here in Wabash County to reverse decline, we need to focus on retaining folks who grow up here, right? But also it's important, the attraction piece. It takes both, right? And we have things that are focused on both, and it's collaboratively all hands on deck to go after that. Education's the same way, right? If we're going to raise our educational attainment rate in the county, it's not just early childhood, it's not just the K-12 system, but also kind of all respects, right? And Learn More Center has really leaned in and stepped into the adult education piece, that all of those things collectively over time will be able to impact our post-secondary educational attainment rate, right?
Absolutely.
Cynthia, talk a little bit about the Learn More Center in the last, let's call it 5 years, leading up to today and the new facility, what that process was like, how that came about.
Oh, that's been a long and winding road, hasn't it, Julie?
Yes, we're there.
We're there. So we did a strategic plan in 2022.
I think so. Yeah.
We started that in 2022. Maybe have wrapped it up in 2023. And what came through over and over again in order to meet our students' needs was the need for being able to have our partners and us work on that post-high school equivalency, getting those folks who can't have access to college yet to that point, but then when they do, getting them ready for whether it's industrial maintenance or certified medical aid, that next step, but we didn't have a place for it. And even in our basic discussions of growth and meeting the needs for Wabash City and its close communities, we weren't able to even have enough hours here in Wabash. We were 6 hours at the Wabash Alliance Church, which was wonderful, a wonderful place to be, but not enough time to be open. So it became very clear during the strategic session that teachers, students, board members, we just kept hearing the same things. We needed a place for that to happen. We needed space. The Town Life Center is a beautiful place to be as well, but again, not a space that would allow expansion. So we got talking and we're here now. That took a while. We had to raise the funds. There was some community foundation funds available for an adult education center that we were able to access, and then some ARPA funding through the pandemic, and then raising from community members. And so we began a 1.5 years, almost 2-year build out from the time we were able to sign a lease and build out, and we're able to open officially August 11th, 2025. And so we're seeing an increase in people returning. I've always had folks who return, but in the last 3 to 4 months, we've had an increase of those who started with their HSC or may have started college or a certification return and say, let's just get this done. We're closer. We have hours that they can do. And so working on expanding partnerships there for as much as I want to deliver all training for all people, we don't have the capacity. So that's where we need those partnerships, Freedom Academy to come in and do those technical certifications, drawing from Ivy Tech, IUK, trying to get more folks in who can deliver those. What have I missed, Julie? You were there the whole time.
Right, right. Well, I think that's one of the big expansions I've seen in my time. And part of that grew out of the model for the Learn More Center. It's a program that's supported by Indiana Workforce Development, Department of Workforce Development. So they provide reimbursement for students who make a gain toward their high school equivalency. But as time went on, their investment would be more effective if they had requirements for workforce readiness skills that go along with the high school equivalency. So they started, what were they, Cynthia, like 10-hour certifications for?
So they added officially, maybe 7 years ago, IETs, which are integrated education and training programs. And those need to be hopefully completed in more than 40 hours, but less than 16 weeks. They want them to be short term, something somebody could attain 3 to 4 months. And they have 3 parts: that workforce training, the skills you need to be into the workforce, the soft skills, but then also attaining the basic skills that you need, those basic math, English, reading skills, as well as, if necessary, if you didn't have your high school diploma, to get that. So the idea was to wrap those all in a pretty bow and get it all done short term. And they are rewarding that. 20% of our funding is to go to workplace career options. They have instituted also a workforce education initiative as well, WEI, and those are for employer-based, very targeted trainings. Across the state, one of the most popular is English language learning, as well as we just started with a local company, more digital skills. So basic computers, along with starting to get ready for basic Excel, all those fun things that you may not be able to do just on your phone.
So for people who didn't finish high school for many reasons, but almost always for a reason of a learning disability or a family situation or some failure in the public school setting, they come to the Learn More Center and they not only get this terrific 1-to-1 or 1-to-2 or 3 instruction, but that leads them easily then on to wanting to do something else, filling out this job. And so we are providing, on average, 30 or 40 new high school equivalencies every year into our workforce.
Last year we broke 42. Our highest was when the test changed many, many years ago, but this is our highest for a long time, is 42. Our goal is 50 this year. We are about halfway there.
And I would say we're one of the more successful adult basic education programs in the region.
Yeah, and that feedback, I would say, Julie, if you want to speak into a little bit, but a regional partnership with the Don Wood Foundation that has gone to support the work of the Learn More Center. If you want to speak a little bit about that partnership, but I believe that feedback came specifically from them who work across, not just in Wabash County, right? They work across Northeast Indiana, and
Right.
they've reached out and said, how are you all getting so many adults enrolled in these programs?
Yeah, their scholarship program really focused on getting high school students into the workforce or into workforce training and higher education. And they came to us and we said we would like to participate, but our greatest need is helping the adult workforce finish their high school equivalency and move into workforce training options. And they said, we want to know what your secret sauce is for getting people. Other areas of the region are not having this much success. So I don't know, Cynthia, what is our secret sauce?
I think our secret sauce is knowing our students can know when they come in, they are going to get individualized attention if they need it. They are still going to get a plan. Our orientation, unfortunately, it has a lot of upfront testing, but we have found that those assessments do allow us to cater to what you really need in terms of this is your basic skill you need, but wow, you really know your science because you've lived it, or you know your social studies because you lived it. And we try to really encourage someone, if you're ready in a subject for, let's say, your diploma, that you go ahead and just do that part so we can focus. So just being individual, and we have some amazing tutors who have just dedicate hours and hours of their expertise so they can just mentor that student one-to-one. And Don Wood has been so amazingly generous. They provide us with a $200,000 grant for a career makerspace for adults. Not all the equipment is in yet, but we're getting close. So hopefully in the next 2-3 months, we'll have all of that up and running, with the goal of allowing adults and other populations to come in and just kind of explore. We did some digging with the state, and we had 98 students over the last 5 years who never made it to high school. They exited, unfortunately, our last person exited in 2nd or 4th grade. So, the homeschool situation at that time for them wasn't being homeschooled. So when you leave before any of the career exploration, many of our students are like, we don't know what we want to do. I've never seen this machine or know what this path is. So that's our next major, I'm just excited about it, is to get that career makerspace up and running so students they won't get a certification, but they will at least, on this first round, they will at least be able to see some machines, do some simulations, explore some career paths, and just having a feel for what they might want to do.
That could most definitely then point them to a certification.
Exactly.
Or certification, right? For whatever.
Exactly.
And
Go ahead.
One thing I've told Don Wood Foundation is that when you work with high school students who are not quite fully baked, and they don't know where they want to go and what they want to do, you struggle to get them on to the future. These people are highly motivated.
Yes.
Even though they come with some disadvantages, they want to move ahead. And when you come to the graduation ceremony and they give their testimonial about how they got to where they are, it is inspiring.
It truly is.
And I think if both of you would be willing to share some of those examples, Cynthia, obviously being in it every single day, I think it would be great for our listeners. We've talked a little bit, and we'll get back to maybe tactfully how it works, whether it's the partnerships, the funding, the programs that are out there. We can circle back to that. But what it's really all about, right, is the impact of those that it's reaching in Wabash County. If you'd be willing to share maybe a story or two just about the impact that you've heard, whether it's at a graduation ceremony or as you've been working with students.
So early in my career with Learning More Center, we had a young lady. She was a mother of 3. I really connected with her because she had young twins, and I did as well, and she had an older child, and I did as well. She could only get in a couple days a week. She was just booked with work and mothering. So she came in, and she could only come in at night. She had a partner that was really supportive now. And you could see the light in her eyes anytime that she learned something. And it was so fantastic to see. And she just took off. She got her high school equivalency, went on to get a better job, and then enrolled in Ivy Tech. And recently, I think 2 years ago, graduated with her bachelor's degree, got her dream job, and has opened a business. So, it didn't happen overnight. Adults struggle. They have families and work and other commitments. So it's hard to sometimes...
The discipline that takes.
Right.
Yeah.
And even have the time.
And then the social work that you do, I think, with getting people connected to resources.
Right, to resources.
And advising them. Yeah. That's really crucial.
But because of all of those other things, Julie, it would take extra motivated individuals to be able to persist through with having a job, with having kids, with having a family, or these other circumstances that they may be navigating.
I think people would be interested to know, too, that the Learn More Center provides education to jail inmates who qualify. And
Absolutely.
Some of our brightest students have taken those 5 exams in the high school equivalency and passed them on the first time.
And passed them well. One of our, last year in 2025, one of our students got a 20 on social studies. It was his last test of the series, and that's a perfect score. That's as high as you can go. And I'd love to say we prepped him really well, but really he came in ready. It was just he had the time and the ability to come here. And we had started several years ago in the jail before the pandemic. We had a student that was almost finished but got released, went to prison and got released, and he came back and he finished up with the rest of his exams, did really, really well, did one of his speeches at our graduation. And just to see him turn his life around, he was able to reconnect with all his children. He was ready to have a series of good, better, and best jobs. And just, we keep up on Facebook. It's just amazing to see the progress. And there were a lot of life choices that he said he had to choose. You know, you're often, if you choose education, you are choosing not to participate in some of your families. I've had wives who were told they couldn't come, or they were allowed to come to a certain degree, and some who had to exit a relationship before they could pursue. You know, and that's always heartbreaking, or if a parent-child kind of thing. But I think the longevity as Learn More goes on and expands, knowing that you can come back when it's ready or when you're safe, is also a big key, that they know there's a safe place.
And the one-on-one instruction and identifying through the original assessments, truly meeting a student where they're at.
Right.
When they come back.
It's so much easier to tell if Julie's my tutor, hey, I didn't get that. I didn't get that again, rather than 30 or 40 people in a classroom.
It's intimidating.
Very intimidating. And so that's another, that's just a benefit. You can have a safe place to be.
Yeah. These students, with all the barriers, full-time job in a lot of cases, family, children that they're raising, when we talk about quality of life in a community, or in Wabash County specifically, having a resource like the Learn More Center in close proximity, right? And maybe we can talk a little bit to the decision to move the facility to Wabash, right? And having still office hours in Manchester and talking through that. But the proximity piece is huge, right? Having a resource like that in the community that's accessible. If Wabash County didn't have the Learn More Center, then we would count on students to go to different programs, whether it was in Kokomo, Marion, wherever
Warsaw,
else.
yes.
And it's just giving the likelihood of them being able to pursue graduating with their high school equivalency, their GED, or again, after that, right, going to get a bachelor's degree, starting their own business, would drop significantly.
It does. That was one of the beauties of being in the old Miller's Furniture building, is that it's right on Cass Street, which is very well documented. Busy thoroughfare. I have words. They're somewhere. And that's helped. We've got Meadowbrook if you're in walking distance. That's in walking distance. And we are seeing some folks take advantage of that. We do have a young man who doesn't have transportation always, and he's been, in the last 3 months, walking 20 to 30 minutes each way to get to class. And he's finally taking us up on the offer of doing some remote when it's this cold. But that dedication, when you get an adult who's ready, and I just told him we were hoping to do another program that's a short-term training, and he's really excited about it. So I think he's got one test left, and it looks like he'll finish that up, and they can go straight into his next short-term training with us. So, but that dedication, and he loves to learn, but was so scared in school. And he had a lot of illnesses, and we hear this a lot with the laws that say, if you're ill and you have a doctor's excuse, it doesn't matter, you still can't graduate, or you can't get your credits because you weren't there enough. He was actually walked out with a corrections officer and told him not to come back to school. That doesn't happen all the time, but if it happens once or twice a year in each school system, you can easily have 10 or so students who are out there without a high school equivalency and traumatized. In North Manchester, I went, I think it was in about 2010, and it was just a collection of students. They'd walk in and cry because apparently they'd all gone to that school. And it was just the trauma. And in that same period of time, I had adults who were 40 or 50 or sometimes 60 who didn't know that they could learn. And we're still seeing that, especially with the pandemic. And I think that's the other beauty, and that's the beauty of hope and the knowledge that you can learn. And I think that as a community, and it just hurt my heart that somebody thought I'm dumb or I can't do this. I've always been told I can't. And all they needed was time and safety. So
that's what some will say at the graduation. I did this because I didn't want my children to think I was a failure or I was dumb.
Right. Or they wanted their children to stay in school and finish, and they knew how to help.
And they'll work right alongside. They both have assignments to do. They work through it in the evening. And
so when the parent has power and they're making that
prioritizing education,
right,
persisting
prioritizing,
through, absolutely.
And learning how to talk to a system. If you left the system before you had autonomy and knew how to talk to administration or talk to teachers or even know what an IEP is, but they can come here and we can help walk them through that process, and they can get help and know, sometimes if you have a learning disability, your child will, and so they know how to advocate now and make sure that that student can continue. Because ideally, we want everyone to go ahead and finish that high school diploma, finish that core 40. But if you don't, get over here, and let's work on that.
And one of the short-term trainings is in being a classroom assistant.
Paraprofessional.
Correct. So we've got the irony of people having taken a long time to get through their education, but then going back to the classroom and participating and contributing.
Absolutely.
And having a different appreciation for that when they're teaching,
right
in that environment to mentor those students.
It's a huge natural resource in the community, I think, to have all these people who are not quite yet ready, and we get them over the finish line.
And for employers, right? The value for employers to have a workforce that continues to credential and skill up. And maybe that's a good transition point to where the Learn More Center is continuing to lean in and head to build upon the strong programming of high school equivalency and completion to now bringing in different partnerships to offer the next step, right? Or the Makerspace Lab that you talked about, Cynthia, right? To shed light on what's out there that may require additional education. Employment opportunities across the country have required more now than they did 10 years ago, than they did 20 years ago, and they will 10 more years from now require something else after high school at a greater rate than they did in the past, right? And so I remember being involved a little bit in when the Learn More Center was choosing where the next facility was going to be, and the Miller Furniture Building, picking the location, you've spoken to that, but really there was the physical hub, creating a space that was a physical hub for adult learners and adult education, right? Where somebody could come to this facility and their needs be met on the one-on-one basis like we've talked about, but also being the almost programmatic hub for all the Learn More Center, serving as that hub organization for resources and training programs, right? And so you rattled off a little bit ago, Cynthia, some of the different partners that are offering programs, but specifically, if I'm an adult learner, whether it's to finish my high school diploma, I know I can come to the Learn More Center and my needs will be met. What are the other training providers or partnerships that you all have that are offering programs in the Learn More Center's facility?
So right now we have Freedom Academy, who started their industrial maintenance technician. They started that late in the fall, and that will wrap up late April. And so that's our first class of industrial maintenance technician, which is a wonderful program and much needed. We will be starting, Heartland Career Center will be holding a CCMA, but anybody who is with us, that's who we will guide them to.
And CCMA for our listeners?
So Certified Clinical Medical Assistant. I have a student right now who she graduated 9 years ago with us, has been really wanting to get in the medical field. So for the last 3 months, she's been coming in every day and really taking notes out of a book that I had. She's bought books on CCMA, and she spends 2, 3, 4 hours a couple times a week just preparing for the CCMA course. And she's so excited in February she'll be able to transition over to Heartland. So having those partners, we are working with IUK and I'm going to get it wrong. I've lost my acronym. Purdue Manufacturing Extension.
MEP.
MEP, thank you. And then Besiege came in and was doing some things with us. So working on our partnerships, we're working on Ivy Tech to get some of their what's usually online, getting some of those academic classes here. So somebody who may be struggling with math online or virtual can have an instructor in person. So those partnerships are evolving right now and getting them in place. So that's the next big thing. Our healthcare lab, we do need some more equipment there, and we're working on what can we offer there in terms of maybe phlebotomy, medical assistance, and basic certifications in the medical field, but we're still working on that space.
Yeah.
So lots to grow in, and then looking at what employers want and working heavily with getting those partnerships so that we are offering training that we know somebody can go into, stay here in the county or surrounding communities, and be an asset to a business.
One of our connections is with Heartland Career Center.
Yeah.
And Brian Evans is on our board, and he has begun sending people. For instance, there are people who come to him and want some training on drafting with
So
a
that was
certain
something we're looking
drafting
into now, like
software.
where there's,
Yeah, and so
getting some ideas.
He'll pass that on to the Learn More Center,
Yeah.
where that's an industry need.
So 2026 and probably 2027, we're really going to need to focus on those partnerships and the needs of students, and to really find out what are the needs that we need to pull on and what partners do we need to pull in. So we're excited about it. We just don't know all the answers yet.
We have a CDL training.
Yes, CDL's training is coming up in February.
Yeah, and there's another one that I'm forgetting. Oh, the CORE, the carpentry
Yes.
basic kind
Thank
of
you. I
safety
forgot that too.
program
So,
that will get people into kind of entry level.
That'll be in
Carpentry.
March.
Okay.
Early March, hopefully, we will start core construction. It will be a very basic certification, but you'll learn tools and safety and get that start into the national construction trades. So you could go on to an apprenticeship or at least have a foot in the door at a construction company and say, yes, I've pounded a nail, I've used power tools, I've done a basic box. It's not at apprentice level, but again, allowing adults and students and other students who just have not had the experience to experience some of those things.
And for people who don't know, the adult basic education is entirely free.
Correct.
A student comes and they're supported by workforce development and the program
Donations,
here.
yep.
Yes, but they pay nothing for that. But the Learn More Center will offer courses that are beyond the adult basic education, that are workforce based, and those have a cost. We have some scholarship opportunities for that through the Community Foundation. We just helped the CCMA students. That was a pricey course, and we had some money that we could help them do that without breaking the bank.
Yes, and we're going to send the student who's coming with us will make the difference as an IET for us so that person can also finish up. But hopefully students for certifications will pay minimal to none if we can, but otherwise that'll be a business expense for an employer, or some students will be able to afford to pay part of that. And now if we can use Pell Grant money for those that are certified. So Freedom Academy or Ivy Tech would be able to use some of that. So we're working at different ways, different ways we can cover that cost for students.
Back again to that one-on-one, level of being able to work with a student to remove any barrier from their ability to pursue further education. I think that we've talked a lot on this podcast with a variety of guests about how our community programmatically through individuals just invests in our people here, right? Our community invests in our community. And I think that, yet again, this is an example of it's not just one organization or one entity, but it's collaboratively looking at the entire landscape and our community really stepping up, whether it's the employers to underwrite that cost, the donors to underwrite that cost, all coming together to remove those barriers from any individual that has an interest in being able to pursue further education.
And their generosity is wonderful, but all investments like that have a return. And it's a powerful return when you can put people to work, especially for your industry. So it's a model that should grow and be successful.
And the state did invest over the past couple years in an actual long-term survey on what is happening after a graduation, or even just what's called a measurable skill gain. So if you walk in and your level is 5th grade reading, but you can't stay for graduation, but you raise your levels, maybe to an 8th grade level, that return on investment a year or more down the road for that one level is a year of like sometimes over $5,000 a year, because you become a better worker. You can understand more, you can do more. And the graduation, up to 3 years afterwards, they were increasing up to about 10,000 with the graduation. So
In a year.
up to 3 years.
Yeah.
So you might start with 5, 7,
Yeah.
and then 10,000, and they
Yeah.
keep exponentially going with wages that you wouldn't have had if you hadn't had the education. So very strong return on investment.
And I think a lot of times when people hear about a community growing economically, they think, well, we need more jobs. We need more jobs, right? And one thing I think we've been extremely fortunate in Wabash County to have a lot of anchor employers, longtime employers that are very philanthropic in our community, but also invest in their people and continue to invest in their business, right? Have you all seen any employers that push back when they have an employee that has an interest in pursuing further training that isn't willing to not only invest in that employee's training, but then because of that certificate or the additional training, they continue to help that company make more money, right, with the work and in their everyday job? And so speak if you can a little bit to some of our employers here. Have you ever came across one that has pushed back or that hasn't been willing to invest in their people?
When I first started, I would say yes, because that person, if they weren't on the job, then they weren't making money for them. So they didn't want to give any hours. They didn't want to, you were working. If you weren't working, you were at home with your family. We weren't going to cut you any slack. In the last 10 years or more, and specifically in the last year, I've seen a complete turnaround. We've had, employers who said, we've had several, unfortunately, over the past 2 years, probably 10 students who came in and thought their credentials were real. And then an employer or Ivy Tech or a college said, no, not real. You really don't have a high school diploma. And the employers were the push for, it's okay. You've got 6 months or a year or whatever you need to take, but we need you in classes and then we'll promote you. And so the change has been wonderful, and it has increase people's wages and their promotions. And I see so far less pushback and more like, you can have the hours off. We'll get you off for testing. Sometimes they just require that we let them know that, yes, they really were here for testing. They did take the day off and here's their results. But I've seen a huge positive turnaround from employers.
And I assume employers, they invest in a new employee.
Sure.
Bring them on, give them some training, and do all the paperwork. If they leave, if that employee leaves, the employer's out that money. So they have more of an vested interest in having that person stay for a length of time.
Yeah.
They get more and more valuable as time goes on.
More and more.
And it starts with the Learn More Center.
Yeah.
But no, I have seen much better results than we used to 20 years ago.
And I think that's a testament just to the Learn More as an organization. As you've continued to grow and refine programs, establish programs, brand recognition in your work across the county, that would also be, it's not by chance that businesses have continued to step up and be willing to do that. I think that's trust in you all and trust in the programming that the Learn More Center is continuing to provide for their employees. So it's really exciting.
I hope people will stop by the Learn More Center and visit it. I think it's that place on Cass Street is sort of like a campus. It's got a laundromat right next door. Students can put their laundry in and come over and take a class. The Dollar General is in the same complex. I call that the Student Union. There's a Ready-Med.
That moved.
Oh, did it?
That moved.
Well, fast food,
So many fast food.
groceries, gas. It's good central location.
It is a very good, it is an amazing location. And I love, when you can walk into the reception, it's a long hall, and I was always afraid that hallway would look too much like a tunnel. but we were taking some tours during the ribbon cutting, and it feels more like a hallway of opportunity, just all these doors of where you can go, and just the potential. Even if you don't, most people will need to go on past us and get into Freedom Academy or beyond, get those associate's degrees, but getting them through how to apply for the FAFSA, how to talk to and get onboarded onto an Ivy Tech platform, or go to Manchester University and walk into admissions. May only do that once or twice a year, but that's a ripple effect, because now their children will know what to do because they'll be there to help them.
We talked a little bit about some of the wins with funding that helped get into the new facility, but we've seen across the country a change in funding from the federal government, the state government, and even down to the local level. If you can, talk a little bit about, obviously, because the programming can be free to adults that are pursuing their high school equivalency, or employers through more advanced programs supporting. What has some of those funding challenges, how's that been leading an organization in a brand new facility, right as you're moving into a new facility? If you'd be willing to share a little bit with our listeners just what that's been like and what some of those challenges might be.
Weeping and wailing and gnashing of teeth come to mind. Yeah, when we got into the new building, we found out funds from state and federal were cut. The state team has been huge on advocating for the budget from federal and state to at least maintain funding, but losing approximately $50,000 from our other level. So we've had a couple staff reduce levels and hours, or have to find other jobs, but being unable to replace them at this point. So it's been juggling and looking at other donors to come, writing bigger grants, just looking strategically. That's one of our goals for this year, is to strategically look at our capacity. What are we going to need to add the partners and do all the training and add a makerspace, and where can that funding come from? Our donors have been amazing, but Wabash County is amazing, but a lot of nonprofits are hurting right now because so much was cut. We started joining what the Community Foundation is doing on, what can nonprofits do for revenue streams, or we're signed up for the series of governance, and that's what our focus will be. How can we make a lean organization that's very well managed, which we are, and not burn out our current staff and tutors and students, because if we're all running around trying to do everything, which Julie's told me for years, you can't do it all, your staff can't do it all. We know that at a point we have to figure that out. It is very challenging.
And the partners that we built this model so that the partners would help shoulder some of the facility cost, and they're facing the same kind of shortfall that we are. So that's challenging.
It's very challenging. Yeah. Many of the organizations have also gone through their strategic plans, or at the end of them, or just beginning to figure out what to do. It's a new world on funding, because we had expected double with an original state budget, and they had expected, and they had to cut $4 million out. So that trickles down. We're a small, effective program, so we lost some, but so did some of our bigger partners in adult basic education, who serve hundreds of students versus our 200 students or 150, depending on the year. So everybody in the world of adult education is trying to figure out, what can we do? Are we looking at more volunteer tutors, reaching out to former teachers, see if they can, dedicate some hours and work on that? That also takes some capacity from current staff to train and coordinate, which we don't have at this exact moment in time.
We've always been able to rely on retired teachers at a sacrificial wage. That we won't be able always to do. So we have to think about how to make that stable.
Right. So looking at volunteer program, what can we do with that? So it's been a whirlwind.
So for somebody that's listening to the podcast, whether they know somebody in their family, themselves, that may be interested in learn more programming for themselves and pursuing additional education, or for a retired teacher, or somebody that may just be interested and seeing the facility or wanting to get
Sure.
more involved, what's the best way they can connect with the Learn More Center?
Best way for a student who wants to get started would be go to our website, learnmorecenter.org, and they can actually fill out a form or fill out the full registration and get registered. For someone who maybe wanting to volunteer or looking to see what they could do to help or just want to see the building, they can probably easiest is to go ahead and email me at Cynthia@learnmorecenter.org. And that'll come straight to me. And then I can make arrangements with whether it be me touring or my development officer, Catherine. So
Cynthia, if somebody's more comfortable calling, the phone numbers are
Absolutely.
all on the website.
phone numbers are all on the
LearnMoreCenter.org.
website. Absolutely.
We'll be sure to put the website and phone number in the show notes of this episode. So if we do have listeners, they can just click the notes and right there from the link.
And we
to
love
be able to reach
touring
you all.
people through. It's still, new and exciting.
Some of your graduates work for you now.
That is true.
Is that right?
Yes. Yes, I have 3 former graduates who are working for us now.
Full circle. Full circle. I had a mentor of mine at Manchester University that kind of rough upbringing and he valued, because of his upbringing, education, because that was his way out through life, and just taught me work ethic, taught me a lot of things. But I'll never forget what he said is that nowadays they can take your car, they can take your house, they can take your kids, right? But one thing they can't ever take away from you is your education, whether that's your high school diploma, your college degree, your associate's degree, a certificate. Those are things that after you complete them, right, that's your path forward and your way in hard times and good times, that education is that path, right? And that's
Exactly.
back to the Cape Grant in the early 2000s, back to the work of the Community Foundation in 2012, really putting the flag in the ground of educational attainment. But day to day, those individuals that you all are working with, that's the story.
That's the story. Education provides hope, the flexibility. I mean, technology is going to keep changing, but your ability to learn, your critical thinking, your problem solving, those skills are what's going to allow us to make those pivotal changes, whether personally or as a community, to make sure that we're still viable and able to make a living.
And as we think about Wabash County's future through those changes, right, in the world and in society, having, again, just the Learn More Center as one of those resources, right, in the tool belt of all things working together, right, but as a resource in this county to attract new businesses, to know that there's a resource like Manchester University from a higher education perspective, like the Learn More Center for adult education, like our Julie's work and our team's work in early childhood, the Imagine Early program. I mean, those are things that when Tennille's talking to a business to attract them to our community, or we're talking to residents, right, that may be interested in moving to our community, having all of those resources available is not common for a community of our size, but I believe positions Wabash County extremely well as we continue to develop those things to create the future that folks for long before my time and your time in this work have envisioned for our community.
Well said.
I just want to make sure everybody knows how impactful lifelong learning is. I just love seeing parents being able to help their children, and even some things as simple as they can keep their pets. I've had people have to get rid of their pets or let them loose because they couldn't afford the dog food or whatever, and they'll go buy them again, but they wanted that pet to be safe. And just knowing that, the more we bring up adults, the more we bring up everything. Nationally, your misuse of prescriptions goes down. Your going back to jail, recidivism is is decreased, and just so many things. We had a student who was working to tutor a lady who just wanted to learn to read, and she found out one of her children or neighbors was stealing from her by having her sign checks, and she had just learned how to fill out a check, and that 500 was different than 50, and she just knew that she was being taken advantage of. And so all those little things, it just impacts everything. I don't know of anything that adult education doesn't impact as that ripple effect, whether it's reduced use of food banks, reduced use of county resources for
Education's that path.
It's that path.
Yeah.
And we make that argument often at all levels of education.
Absolutely.
I say the same thing for early childhood education.
It's true.
But
And
yeah,
it takes all those
Yes.
interventions, right, to truly make a difference in a community. But I think that, Cynthia, as you summarize that, we get to work on a lot of exciting things every day, and through budgets, right, through funding challenges, through new construction of buildings, through grant opportunities. But what it's truly about is the stories that you just shared, right? It's real people with real challenges in the county. And so I always appreciate conversations like this, or hearing those stories, and appreciate, hopefully our listeners will too, that you were able to share some of that, just because I think reminding ourselves of that reminds us why it's important, why weathering the storm and doing more with less and continuing to push forward through challenging times is all worth it, right? It's all worth it. You get to see it every day. Thank you, ladies, very much for coming on board the Thrive in Wabash County podcast. I'm really excited for our listeners to get to enjoy this episode and learn more about the Learn More Center. The resources, as I'd mentioned before, in the show notes. And so the website, the phone number, and Cynthia's email, please reach out. I know the Learn More Center would be happy to talk with you. This podcast and our ability to share stories like this are all made possible through our generous support from the Gilman Investment Fund, the Sandra Kunkel Trust, Mark and Amy Ford, Paperworks Industries, the City of Wabash, the Community Foundation of Wabash County, and Visit Wabash County. Until next time, I'm Alex Downard, and this is the Thrive in Wabash County podcast.